First off, Michael, do people think you're intimidating in real life?
No, no. Sometimes people meet me in an airport and I talk to them. I
Uh,
look to talk to people, and they always have a kind of a look of disappointment on their face when they go, "You're not like the character that you play on TV." I'm like, "No, I'm not."
Good to know. Good to know when I run into you at the airport. Uh, Sierra, you've done a lot of writing, right? I give this big background. What did you bring from past projects that you were able to bring into this?
Oh, everything. I mean, I've worked in television comedy for about over 10 years now. I was a giant teacher's pet when I started. I started in a room called Happy Endings, and a lot of the writers in that room had worked on shows like Just Shoot Me and Bet and Veronica's Closet. And these were shows I grew up loving. And I remember just writing down every single thing that they said, like it was gospel. And I always thought, like, oh, if I ever have a writer's room, these are the things I'll do. And kind of have, like, in that room, it was a lot of seasoned writers and a lot of new writers, but it was all very equal in terms of who could talk and who could contribute. And it was like a teaching hospital. I remember just thinking, if I ever get a chance to do it, that's how I want to do it. And that was a lot of how Rutherford Falls' writing room was. We had half native writers, half non-native, some seasoned, some not. And it was just really fun to watch seasoned writers get excited by new stories from these native writers that they just never heard before. And to just build comedy in that setting.
Mhm. How do you both see the industry moving forward as far as Native American, storylines and things like that with, Reservation Dogs and the show, and how is it going? How do you feel?
I think excellence speaks volumes for an industry. I think we've been advocating for a greater share of control of our images, of our stories since cinema began. So this is not something that's just been happening for the last like decade or so. We have always been fighting for that, and I think what's happened in recent years is that the sort of vast experience of our artists, of our writers, of our potential showrunners was that their stories were really great. And I think the success of our show, the success of Reservation Dogs, the success of films that have been helmed by people like Sidney Freeland and Lyle Mitchell Corbijn Jr. and Jeff Barnaby, tell audiences and industry the same thing. When Indigenous creators are given opportunity and license, their stories blow minds and audiences follow.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. I think, for many decades around kitchen tables and hotel lobbies of Native film festivals, there was always this conversation of like, who's it going to be? What's it going to be like when we really get a chance to do it the way we want to do it at this level? And you're really just seeing it. You're seeing sort of the fruit of so much labor from generations of Native media makers. And it's an incredibly exciting time. I would say part of it's a little bittersweet because the people who came before you, whose shoulders that you stand on, that should have had a run. Charlie Hill should have had a sitcom the way Roseanne Barr did. There's so many people, too many to name, that would have had amazing runs if they'd had the same access that we do. And I feel like because we feel such a calling and an obligation to tell our stories because of the people who didn't get to do it. And it's just a really exciting time. It's also just really funny, and the stories are really good. Like, we both grew up just loving, my aunt ran a video store and we watched every single thing we get our hands on. And just to be a part of this sort of storytelling tradition on top of the indigenous storytelling tradition we're already a part of, it's incredible.
Mm. Can you talk about Two Spirit has been a part of the culture for so long and not always shown, and really ahead of the game, I think, as far as how things have progressed. Can you talk about storylines for that and possible things that could happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the concept of Two Spirit is very specific to certain nations, and I think it's been used as sort of a catch-all term for a lot of different concepts that are very similar. So I always feel an obligation not to speak on something if I don't have enough knowledge on it. I will say that I think that there is a assumption that in small towns there isn't diversity, that there isn't different types of people, that there aren't people representative LGBTQ plus folks. And growing up in small towns, going back to my reservation, so many of the people who we relied on for our stories and our traditions were people from those communities and still are. And you often see so much more diversity in small towns than I think mainstream media would have you believe. And so it was very important to me to have characters like Jesse Lee's character, Bobby, and different types of folks on our show, because that is very reflective of my life and the life of my family who live in much smaller towns.
Yeah, I come from a small town background, and being gay is not so easy. Let me just tell
No,
you.
it's not. It's not.
Yeah, and we're going with Pride Month and everything. And that character, the Bobby character, was not how it turned out to be, but how did that evolve?
Well,
That you know?
I had a lot of family members in my family who were LGBTQ plus, and I definitely wanted to represent that. We also wanted to represent the immigrant community. I feel like if you're telling the story of America, that's a huge element. And then Jesse Lee came in and represented so many different parts of different communities, and was just lovely and really blew us away. Had a very classic comedy timing while also bringing in this youthful energy. And like, it's so funny, one of the games we play on set is, has Jesse seen it? And we'll be like, Back to the Future. And he's like, I don't know what that is, sorry. And so to me, there's so many wonderful complexities to Jesse's character, and I think really championing their personality and that character to run for mayor, to have a part of the community, and also to be a teenager and to have a lot of those implications and really get to just be who they truly are, I think to me is incredibly it's just incredible to like witness that and watch that and think about the family members I had who would have or could have benefited from that had this come out 20 years ago.
Michael, how was being in Firestarter?
I love that experience. It was a lot of fun to tell a thrilling story. I hope people tune into Peacock to see it.
Awesome. Yeah. What else do you have coming up? Do you guys have projects coming up?
Well, of course, I'm excited about this season of Rutherford Falls. I think the stories that we're telling are incredibly complex. One of the great benefits of season one, or one of the great results of season one, is that we were able to present Indigenous stories and topics that were important to our communities. And in season two, I think we've picked up where we left off, and we're telling stories about cultural appropriation, identity theft, representation. The wonderful episode about Adirondack. This fictional TV show. For me, that's we poured a huge amount of our heart and energy into making that season, and I'm here to celebrate that.
Excellent. Okay. Your character, Michael, is just evolving, though. I mean, it's getting so nuanced. I'm like excited for season 3.
As are we all. We'd love to have a season 3. I think one of the beautiful things about Terry's writing this year is, that he was presented as a powerful person, a complex person. But in season 2, he's run into so many obstacles to, fulfilling the sort of dreams that he spoke about in season 1, that we get to see a kind of new vulnerability. And I think it's really important, as a male character, that we represent, our maleness in ways that are that match our communities. And I think the presence of vulnerability and a kind of a sensitive side that Terry gets to display in this season is really valuable.
Awesome. Well, they're wrapping me up, but just thank you so much for the interview. It was great to talk to you both.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.